Hello and welcome to the latest eCommerce Explored webinar. I'm your host, Chloe Thomas, and this one is the hot one. This one's all about Black Friday and peak success in 2025. What have you got to do this year to be successful? Hopefully you've all got your strategies pretty well in place by now, but you should be able to, there's still time to tweak, isn't there? So you should pick up some extra good ideas from this session today. eCommerce Explored exists to discuss and hopefully find some answers to the questions that you're all asking in your jobs day to day. Those things you're wrestling with. What should we be doing? How should we be doing it? How do we make the most of it? This time, our topic is Black Friday. We'll also be talking about peak in general. There is clearly an awful lot for us to talk about. So I'm going to try and get through the housekeeping and admin stuff relatively fast. This is a live session. We are really doing this as you are watching it if you're one of the people who's tuned into the live version, which means you get to ask us questions and we will almost certainly respond to them either via the video, or me or one of the other panelists will get back to you in the comments chain, because they are primed, ready to get typing as well as talking. You can add your questions in the Q&A or comments box that should be somewhere probably to the right of the screen where you're seeing us right now. It'd be great to give that functionality a test. So those of you who are already logged in, the eager beavers, please do let me know where you're tuning in from. Where are you in the world? Panelists, you are welcome to join in with that as well. And whilst those are filtering their way through to me, the other important thing to know about the questions is, if you don't ask your question until 10 minutes until the end, we won't have time to answer it. Okay, so if you've got questions you're thinking you really want answers to right now, then come and ask those questions immediately, or as soon as they pop up. Put them in there. I've got them permanently up on my screen so I can see your questions coming in via the comments as you ask them, and we will weave them in as they fit in with our discussion, or as I get properly distracted by them. Either of those can happen. We won't be waiting till the end to do Q&A. If a good question comes in the first 5 minutes, we may go straight on to that. So do ask your questions soon. Plus, of course, as I have already mentioned, our panelists have full access to the chat functionality. So you never know, they may give you an answer to your question before I even manage to ask it, which kind of makes sense somewhere in this strange world of webinaring. Okay, everyone's shy today, I'm guessing, so no one's willing to tell me where you are. So we will carry on and tell you who the panelists are, because that's the next thing I need to let you know. So let me find my slide deck. Right, so we have two awesome e-commerce marketing experts with us for today's session. We have the brilliant Anna Wilson from Ascent, and we have the brilliant Hannah Cook from Loyalty Lion. Yes, we have a Hannah and an Anna, so things may get confusing, but we shall do our best to try and make sure it doesn't happen. I would say I'd look at the one I'm sending the question to, but I don't think it quite works that way. So we have Hannah and Anna, our marketing experts, joining us. And as I mentioned earlier, I am your host, Chloe Thomas, Chief Success Strategist at Emetco Media, which includes this webinar series, eCommerce Explored, and eCommerce Tech, the website via which we run it all. So I think it's time. I think, quite frankly, you all had more than enough of solo me. So I think it's time we get Anna and Hannah up on the stage to give you a better intro to them. So hello, ladies. It's great to have you here. The audience would love to know a bit more about each of you. So let's go to Anna first. So Anna, please, could you introduce yourself to the audience?
Great. Thanks for having me, Chloe. I'm Anna. I have been in the industry now for over 20 years, showing my age now. So I started off client side, doing everything from kind of implement the strategy, and then all the way through to executing. So looking at digital and offline too. I then went over to the dark side, went agency side. I was there for nearly 9 years, worked with a number of brands across that kind of growth strategy, also headed up the digital proposition at the agency. And about 8-9 years ago now, I decided that I missed getting my hands dirty being client side, but also liked working across a number of different brands. So I set up Ascent consultancy, and I work with a number of brands looking basically at how do they get more from their existing customers and how do they acquire more new too. I'm also non-exec director at Go Direct Marketing, who have specialise again in growth, but also focus on direct mail, and that's me.
Nice. Now, if that hasn't sparked some questions, I don't know what will. That was such a thorough intro there. Love it. Thank you, Anna. Hannah, your turn.
Thanks, Chloe. Hi, everyone. My intro won't probably be as long as that, but I've been working at Loyalty Line for over 5 years now. My role is a principal customer success manager. So essentially, I work with a lot of brands at Loyalty Line with their loyalty programs. So I chat to many brands on regular occasions, have monthly catch-ups, talk strategy, optimization, and obviously update them on how their programs are doing. So I tend to get the inside scoop quite a lot in terms of their plans, especially for Black Friday. So I'm looking forward to discussing that in more detail today.
Definitely looking to pick both your brains on both what you know and both what you've heard, because
Yeah.
that's always half the battle, isn't it? Finding out what everybody else is up to. So regular attendees of this will know I like to start not necessarily with questions, but with a series of statements and complete the sentences to get the discussion going, because, well, fundamentally our panelists know more about this than I do. So it's always good to pick their brains early on and see what big themes are coming out. So let's get that happening right now. So first off, I think this we've got to come to you first with this, Hannah, because you were just saying about how you're hearing the behind the scenes with everybody. So finish this sentence. The question I'm getting asked about Black Friday the most at the moment is.
Well, there's two questions really that are coming up quite a bit at the moment. The first one is, when should I start my messaging about Black Friday? When's too soon? And really just like getting the right time as to start communicating that with customers. And I guess the second one that is more tailored to loyalty in particular is, what should I do about discounting? Obviously, as you all know, it's what comes with loyalty is customers using points at the same time, and brands are questioning how do they stop double discounting, whether that's allowing customers to use points against their Black Friday discounts. Should they do that? Shouldn't they do that? So yeah, they're the two main questions that are coming up at the moment for me anyway.
So you're going to have to answer those before I go to Anna for what she's hearing. So Hannah, when should, I mean, it's like, when should I send my emails? When should a Black Friday campaign begin?
It's a good question because it really depends. As lo- as long as you know what you want to do for customers in terms of the run up to Black Friday, that should really tailor when the messaging starts. When I was actually doing a little bit of research the other day into this, when I was looking back through my emails, looking at what brands were doing last year, a lot of them tend to start communicating that beginning of November, really. When you are communicating that with loyalty members, we always recommend it being a little bit sooner than your kind of standard subscriber list. We want to make sure that they're feeling recognized and they're important and they're kind of getting the sneak peek, a little bit of a preview. So in terms of what I've had a few brands maybe talking about is firstly early access. That's kind of bread and butter for loyalty programs, then being able to access the sale sooner than before it goes live, and just making sure that you're trying to build subscriber lists before that and getting customers involved in loyalty before the event actually happens. So starting to build the community there. But also a really interesting idea that I have seen quite a few large athleisure brands doing is like sale sneak peek pricing and allowing customers to build wish lists prior to the sale as well. I think that's a really cool idea and a mechanism that I've actually used myself. Particularly with like fashion brands prior to sales, and trying to build my wish list and actually getting the prices before everyone else, which I think is a really cool idea.
So
So that's the first answer.
is that literally you can see it, but you can't buy it at this price. Build your
Yeah,
wish list. So
exactly.
when wow, that's clever. That is
Yeah, I
clever.
really like it. I think I'm trying to think about the mechanism that they do it, but some literally have it in like a PDF doc within email. I've seen some brands doing
That's
it.
simple.
Gymshark namely stands out as one of those types of brands that does that. So yeah, I really like that idea in terms of like customers being able to see it before anyone else. And I think the loyalty mechanism is a great way to do that.
Nice. We'll
I
come
like
on
the
to
idea.
Anna, I
Um,
was going to come to you next, so go for
Sorry.
it.
I was just going to say, I really like the idea of actually building up the engagement by doing something like that as well. Because if you do something where you can actually house it on the website or something, you actually understand how many people are interested coming to the site, building that engagement, and then it helps with the segmentation for the targeting during the actual offer period as well. It's a good idea.
It's
Yeah,
nice, isn't it?
exactly. You're able to identify like your loyalty members, for example, in that. So you could just send that kind of private URL that isn't accessible via the website, but they can see all of the products and the pricings beforehand, and they can really plan what it is that they want to get, and then they get early access to those pieces before it's kind of made live to everyone else in the general public.
Nice. So,
Yeah.
Anna, I was going to come to you with the same timing question. When would you start Black Friday? Is it kind of early November and then go earlier for certain segments, or would you advise something different?
Again, I do think it depends. And actually, I think there's also a question mark about whether a brand does it or not in the first place. But for brands that are definitely kind of participating, I think the key thing is it depends on the offer and the type of communication that you're doing. Because if you, for example, are doing blanket 20% off, for example, actually you need to drive a hell of a lot more of sales to actually make that work than if you wasn't doing an offer. If you have done that previously and customers are used to you doing that, they're going to wait until that offer goes live because they know that something's coming up. So I think the key is if you are doing it and you're waiting till nearer the time, you've got to have something that hooks them in and is compelling prior to that. So some brands, for example, last year went out pre their Black Friday promos with kind of price guarantees on certain products. Or actual things like to give kind of the guarantee or the confidence that actually it's okay to buy now, rather than people just waiting, because what Black Friday has done for many brands is killed sales before, and also killed sales afterwards. So when you kind of look at the whole period together, it's not actually driven incremental profit. It's just actually brought in a kind of an unnecessary peak in the middle of that period. But I would say for brands who are definitely going out with it, actually think about how you can keep it relevant, and actually how you can make sure customers don't get bored. It's very easy to 3 weeks into a Black Friday campaign, no one actually be looking up what's coming out because they've seen it all 2 weeks previous.
There is so I think the two of you demonstrated so well how much there is feeding into trying to make these decisions. So let's go on to the second thing that Hannah raised, and then we'll go to Anna for what she's hearing about Black Friday. But Hannah, coming back to you for this one, discounting, avoiding double discounts. What are your I mean, we could spend the rest of the webinar talking about this one, but what are your kind of top one or two pieces of advice for someone on trying to work out their discount strategy for this time of year?
It's really tough. I will admit that. I think it really does depend. I don't think there is a right answer. It's always really down to the brand to really look at their margins and think, can we afford customers, in my case, to allow them to use their loyalty points alongside their discounts that they're doing, whether that's like site-wide blanket 20% off. So in terms of the brands that I work with, I have both. Some brands don't allow customers to use their points and some brands do. It's just important during and on the run up to the event that it's made clear that if they can't use their points, why they can't use their points. And in many cases with brands that don't, and loyalty customers are earning points, but they're obviously not allowed to spend them during that time, celebrating other specific events for those loyalty customers outside of Black Friday or Cyber Monday. So something that I've been communicating with brands about that aren't participating customers using their points during the promotion is maybe doing something at Christmas to celebrate their loyalty members, and also help counteract kind of buyer fatigue in terms of they've just purchased a lot of product during that week. It's gone around to Christmas, you know, people are watching their pennies. It could be a nice opportunity for them to feel recognized, still use their loyalty points from the promotion that they just earned them from, but also kind of an opportunity to celebrate them and do something around the festive period.
I'd add two things to that. One would be make a proactive choice as a business, whether you're allowing it or not. I mean, that's
Yeah.
101. Actually make a decision rather than sit there in January going, oh no, I didn't mean to do that. All our margin went. And then I love that idea of even, you know, yes, maybe you're not allowed to use your loyalty points during Black Friday. I think, you know, if you sell it, you know, if you explain it well enough, it's a perfectly reasonable thing to do as a brand. But then you've got the opportunity of, you know, going through my head was like, do your gift buying on Black Friday and then use the points to treat yourself in January, or those kind of messages suddenly become really juicy rather than, you know, just a big X next to the boxes in the checkout sort of thing. Anna, what's your take on the discounting strategy question?
I think retailers really need to understand their unit economics. I think they really need to understand things like, for example, if we discount by 20%, how many more sales do we need to get to generate the same profit? If we're spending £50 to recruit a new customer, what does that look like for someone coming in on a discount? What's their lifetime value? What's their allowable cost? All things like that, which actually then will change depending on the discount. So I think there's an exercise where a lot of brands would benefit from kind of going, option A, this is what it would need to look like to make it a success. Option B, it would need this amount more, etc. Because there's so many brands who get to the end of the Black Friday period and they're clapping their hands thinking, oh, we've increased revenue by 30%, 40%. And then when it comes out in the wash, actually they've lost money. They've recruited a shed load of customers that aren't coming back. They've given away a load of discount, and then nobody's buying in December because everyone's already spent their money on the brand in November, and there's nowhere out other than them discounting even more. So there's definitely not a one size fits all. But I think you can look at the different options.
And it definitely starts with the maths. Starts
Yeah.
and ends with the maths. You cannot do it without. Okay, right. Let's come back to the first question again. Anna, you're still in the hot seat. What questions are you questions are you most getting asked about Black Friday at the moment?
Two most common ones are ones that Hannah's already pointed out. And
Cool.
then the other one, I did touch on it, but should we actually participate in it? So
Huge
should we do
question.
it?
Yeah.
Should we not do it? And again, goes back to the unit economics. Sorry if I'm boring you all with that one.
You could
But
no. I'm sorry. I'm going to go stop you there. If anyone in e-commerce is bored by unit economics, they are in the wrong industry. I'm just going to
exactly,
never apologize for unit economics maths. This is essential stuff. Sorry,
exactly.
Anna.
So also trade trade is a wonderful thing, right? You will all be probably having a weekly meeting, looking at how performance is going, and actually looking at how much stock is sat there. You don't necessarily need to give away margin if performance is strong. Yes, normally by giving a discount, you will drive more sales. But if you've then got nothing to sell in December, you've got to think about that as well. So it's what I always say is actually one look at the data to see if you can do it and what options there are, and two, actually look at what happens potentially if you don't do it. I think the key thing is if you don't do it, is actually making customers aware that you're not going to do it. And actually making that decision, although you might base it a bit on trade, you probably need to make that decision 3 or 4 weeks out, because if you're not going to do it, customers will still wait to see if you do it. Whereas if you're going out there early November and saying we're not participating in Black Friday this year, all our products are great because of this, and this is limited stock, this is exclusive, etc., you will still get those sales on the lead up. Don't ignore it completely.
Yeah, I remember back in the pandemic, I was working with a brand who couldn't do Black Friday because they just didn't have the stock,
Yeah.
but didn't communicate it. And that Black Friday in the middle of the pandemic was their biggest sales day ever, with 0 discounts on across
Yeah.
the website of all time ever, because customers hold back cash to spend on that weekend. So you probably will, even if you're not doing it, you probably will still see a bump because there's that higher
Yeah.
propensity to spend. But yeah, it all comes down to the numbers, whether you should do it or not. Hannah, what's your take on avoiding doing Black Friday altogether? Do you completely agree with Anna's take on it, or would you have some other bits you'd add?
I agree. I think to be honest, the conversations that I have aren't really about the numbers, to be honest. I'm not that close to a lot of the brands' financial figures and things like that. But when I do talk to brands about it who aren't participating in it, a lot of the decisions as well are to do with their brand identity. Does it align with them as a business? Especially I do work with quite a few fashion brands as well, and sustainability is one of the pieces within like their business ethos. So it's also, they also say, you know, when we communicate to customers, because the brands that don't participate tend to, and they should do if they're not, they obviously provide reasons as to why. And it might not be that they talk about, you know, stock levels or business margins, but it might just more be about, yeah, it doesn't align with our brand identity. We want customers to make meaningful purchases. That doesn't add to, you know, a lot of the consumerism that they might see in today's society. So yeah, that's also something, and that's what kind of the brands I talk to in terms of their decisions, that's also a factor to that.
I'm going to completely curveball us based on some of what you just took us into there, Hannah, because I think that whole brand piece is so important. And today on LinkedIn, Andy McCarhay, whose surname I always fail to pronounce correctly, from IMRG, which if you're in the UK, you'll be very familiar with IMRG, shared this amazing set of stats, right? This is, let me try and get it big. This will relate to Black Friday in a second, I promise you all. It's not just totally mad. So the orange bits are the real year-to-date sales year on year changes in these categories. So that one there's clothing, that's electrical, that's gifts, that's health and beauty, home and garden, sports and outdoors. This is the total market, and what it's being compared to in the dark bluey blacky color is the IMRG forecast for the year, which is usually pretty accurate. And so this is UK sites selling in e-commerce and what's happened. You see, everything is better than anticipated apart from clothing. And if you read through the comments, you'll find, this is where I'm getting back to the point here. If you read through the comments, then you will find out that, and actually let me, before I forget, share the link to this post, because I know you all want to go and look at it properly in the chat, which should enable you to link through to it. The reason clothing is down is because people are spending their clothing money on second hand, not on, oh look, we've all disappeared from the screen. We've still on the screen. The reason why clothing is behaving so totally different from all the other sectors is because people are vintage, basically. People are spending their money on second hand. The very tangential way this comes back to what Hannah was saying is, I think we're going to see quite a few brands using Black Friday this year to launch their buyback schemes to enter the second-hand market themselves. If I was in fashion, I would 100% be planning for 2026 a second-hand market on my site. I'd be doing it via a buyback scheme where we take control of what gets listed, and I would be using Black Friday as an opportunity to give people discounts if they send in XYZ number of items, is what I'd be doing. Anna, you were looking, you were hoovering up those stats, but do you think there's going to be? I mean, I'm tangenting slightly from Black Friday peak. Do you think there's going to be a second-hand boom this peak season in some way or
Yeah,
another?
I think just listening to the guys from Continue, and actually some of the conversations in that market at the moment, I think there is. I think there's quite a few brands that are launching it imminently, and yes, some will. I wonder whether brands will use peak though, or whether they'll wait till afterwards, because I think it's kind of that whole kind of education piece, and actually they've probably bought product ahead of time, right? And they don't want to suddenly do that kind of shift on. And yeah, it'll be interesting to see how it goes. But I absolutely think it's round the corner for for a lot of brands.
I suppose in some ways it feeds into loyalty points as well, doesn't it? Rather than necessarily just giving
Yeah.
discounts, giving loyalty points for it. Are you seeing many do get into the second-hand buyback space at the moment, Hannah, or is it still a bit new?
Yeah, we've had a few brands that have already transitioned to doing that. So Represent is probably one of our main examples of a brand that has done that. They're like streetwear, like they've got men's, they've now launched women's, and they have that on their site. And I think Never Fully Dressed as well is another example of a brand that's done that, who use Loyalty Line, and the customers, even when they make those secondhand purchases, they can still earn points for those. So they are still involved in the program, they're still classed as a loyal customer, and yeah, they're still part of the community and can move up the tier levels. So by buying directly through them as well, they still get those experiential perks, which a lot of customers do, like particularly within Represent's program, as an example.
Nice. Okay, let's get back properly on track now, rather than Chloe's love of tangenting into the world of sustainability. So I've just realised this slide I'm going to bring up next is going to give us a sentence that makes no sense. I'm seeing brands make the biggest peak season fails which makes no sense at all. What I'm really trying to ask you here, ladies, is what are the biggest peak season fails you've seen that there's still time for people to avoid this year? What are the ones where you're like, oh God, they've done that again, or that happened, that you think people should avoid? Anna, you look like you're ready to go for this one, so
I am.
come to you
I'm
first.
ready. When they take Black Friday and just look at that program in isolation of everything else. So it's almost just as a silo, that promo period. It contradicts with other stuff they normally do. So typical example, Black Friday last year, I can't remember what brand it was, but I saw an ad on Meta, went onto their website. 2 hours later, got an email with an abandoned basket. The email had a completely different promo on it to the Black Friday promo. It was actually worse than the Black Friday promo. And also, thing to add as well, when I landed on the site after going from Meta, I got the email pop up with a worse offer than what I'd been shown on the advert as well. And what brands are doing there, and this wasn't the only brand doing it, but they literally just look at that promo, say, right, over the course of that weekend, we're going to do this. They don't think about their customer journey that they've already got in place. So they just keep everything switched on. And what they should be doing is either looking at each individual part of the customer journey and saying, right, we need to tweak this based on what we've got going on. Or in some cases, there'll be some things that they want to just switch off. Also, there'll be some things. So the customer journey in many cases will have business as usual email campaigns, for example, might exclude people who have already got an email within the so many hours previous. So if they happen to be in some automation, they're getting the automated campaign, and they're not getting anything to do with Black Friday because it's excluding that. So, and I think it just needs them to think about everything. and the bigger picture. So not just what's happening in each channel, but actually what's happening at each touch point of the customer journey.
There's two things I want to add to that before we come to Hannah for her take on this. The first one is, if ever there's a time for going through all your Facebook ads, the creatives, and double checking what should and shouldn't be turned off, the start of a new season is a good time to do it. To just go through and go, oh, we're still letting Facebook use some banners that say spring is here. Obviously, if you're in Australia, that's fine. But up here in the Northern Hemisphere, really not a good message. So I think that's like, go and do. It's so easy to forget about the creative now. The algorithm does so much with it, but you do need to do that sense checking. And then yesterday, I was recording a podcast with Rich Evans from Get Better, who specialise in email. So I'm say that because I'd love to claim this as my own piece of advice, but I can't. Which is to mystery shop your emails at the moment. So to go on an incognito browser, go to your website, see what pops up, sign up with an email address you've never signed up with before, and see what comes in. And as you spot the errors, go and fix them before somebody else lands on them. So obviously you're not going to get the full complexity of all the stuff Anna was just going through, but it's a great way of just double checking that new sign up journey. Hannah, what do you see as the biggest fails people can make at this time of year, peak or Black Friday?
Yeah, it's a good question. I think I've probably taken more of a loyalty approach to this, just because that is my bread and butter.
Please
But
do.
it's more just the preparation of the on-site journey. So it is linking to what you were saying, Chloe. Specifically with loyalty, I find it so sad when the visibility isn't there for the loyalty program, and that is some brands' downfall as to the lack of engagement and the lack of awareness of actually using it. Because like you said, you'll acquire many customers during this really busy peak season, and when customers are receiving their items, they might go, yeah, I love this item, I love this product, I want to buy from them again. But they actually have no real idea about the loyalty program, the benefits that come with it, especially with regards to the experiential benefits, not just the transactional. Although I'm sure a lot of the shoppers who purchase during peak are quite transactional driven, because seeing as they might have gone for that discount initially, which also leads into my second point of really helping your members who did sign up prior to the peak season, whether you've done some campaigns to generate some awareness and excitement, is really helping excuse me, customers understand the value of points within the program, because you'll be very surprised as to some customers don't really understand, what 5 points is in terms of a pound or a dollar spent on the site. So it's really important in your kind of pre-purchase messaging, when you're ramping up excitement about the promos, just saying to customer, if you buy this bestseller, we're doing double points, and that's going to give you X amount of dollars off your next purchase. So when there is a little bit of a slower turn in sales, that's what will drive them back when you do that kind of messaging after they've made their purchase. So yeah.
I think that's such a good point, because the times when I see people failing with loyalty is when they've just done it on the side. And if you're going to make it work, it has to be a core part of your overall retention, customer connection, etc. strategy. So I love that you brought that up. That's absolutely brilliant. Now we've had a question from the audience. Yay! So I'm going to bring that up on screen so Hannah and Anna can have a look. I suspect this is probably a question for Anna rather than Hannah, but Hannah, if that's a massive error on my part, do say, and you're welcome to answer it as well. Those of you watching, we still have got probably 10-15 minutes where we can answer your questions. So if you've got a question you would like us to answer about anything to do with peak, then do get it into that chat thingy that's on the side of your screen, the right hand side of the screen where you're watching, ASAP, so we have time to get you good answers. And it looks like she's still reading because it's a long question. So I'm going to keep talking for a little bit. And when she stops looking like she's reading, I'm going to ask her for an answer. Okay, we've got laughter. I reckon she's ready to answer. So Anna, what do you think on this one?
I think the key thing is differentiating between what you have to split versus what you would prefer to split, if that, or because I think there's a couple of things here. I'm assuming are you saying, sorry, Paul, but are you saying you have to split them? Are they coming from different places, or is it just logistically it's easier for you to split?
We may get an answer to that coming in.
Sorry.
I would I would assume they have to be split. And if he
Yeah.
answers differently, we'll go differently. So maybe the cheese board is being drop shipped and they're sending the cheese directly or something like that.
Yeah,
Maybe.
I don't think, I think the key thing for the customer is them, because it makes sense as to why you'd have to split them up. It's not as if you're sending one, wait a second, I'm just seeing your answer. There's too many items to fit in the shipping box. Right, okay. Um, so it is
Like cheeky
slightly
and say
different.
buy bigger
Uh,
boxes. Maybe not a short term situation, scenario, but it might be worth doing it. But Anna, back to you. Sorry.
Yeah, I think it depends, because if it is like the scenario you said, Chloe, I think it a customer would understand potentially why it is split, and I actually think people don't mind if orders are split, especially in this day and age. I think a lot, especially because quite a lot of brands out there ship from different warehouses, different locations. Some do drop ships and everything anyway. I think the key thing is that you don't land on their doormat with a parcel and they just think the other item is missing. Because I think if they think the other item is missing, it's going to create a whole load of customer service issues, right? That you're going to have to resource and have to deal with them. So I think you need to inform them up front that they are coming from different places, and in some cases, or they're coming in different parcels, and what's coming when. Assuming you can do that. Um, if they are literally because you can't fit them both in the box, so you're doing it to get the most cost effective, which may or may not be, and they're landing on the doormat at exactly the same time, I think you can state almost like one of two boxes arriving, and two of two boxes, and stuff like that. I actually think you might not need to worry about it as much as you are. But I would potentially look at, actually, if is there a different more cost effective way of doing it.
I wonder if you could just sellotape the two boxes together. I know a few, like Who Gives a Crap, who sell the toilet roll. If you buy toilet roll and
Yeah,
tissues in the same purchase, they just sellotape the big box of tissues to the big box of toilet roll and enjoy the cost saving on the delivery. So I think maybe there's a creative way of doing it, but customer
yeah,
communication has to be the key, doesn't it? Really, because of course
exactly.
these are also your best customers, aren't they? Because they're the ones buying lots of cheese, not a small amount of cheese. So
Yeah,
one to
and it's
ponder
just
on. Thank
meeting
you.
their expectations, really.
Yeah, great question there, though, Paul. Thank you. Any other questions? Get them in super fast. Now, my next question for both of you is Black Friday is often seen as customer acquisition heaven and not really being about customer retention. Now, I'd like to say I had planned this to have two more retention specialists than acquisition specialists in this. It's an accident, but it's a very happy accident. Um, do you, you're both seeing the role of Black Friday, or your influence on Black Friday is heavily about the retention side of things. Who do we send what offer to? How do we use the loyalty points to increase retention, increase customer lifetime value? How do we segment? How do we use the different channels? Do you think there's more, big question, do you think there's more of a retention opportunity than there is an acquisition opportunity if you're doing Black Friday right? Because whenever I think I'm gonna just vamp for a bit because you were both thinking a lot, and I want to give you time to think. Whenever I think if I was structuring a Black Friday, for me it would all start with the segmentation of the existing user
Yeah.
base, who gets what, who gets preferences, who gets this, that, and the other, and then doing the acquisition bit afterwards. But is that a crazy idea? Anna, you look ready to go. So what do you think?
It depends on the product. So, for example, last year, I will call out brands. Not sure whether they'll listen, but Tony's, the kids' I don't know whether you're all aware of Tony's, but they're basically a digital, it's a box you put a character on the top of, and it reads out a bedtime story or plays music. And their offer, I think it was last year, Black Friday, was all about the box. I'm seeing the emails. I've got a box. I've had a box for 2 years, and I've also got 20 characters or whatever, because actually it's quite a good present for a kid of actually adding on over time. And that box wasn't going to appeal to me. Yes, it might have appealed to me, and actually I did forward it to a couple of friends who we'd been chatting at the school gates about it. However, if they'd have done something around the characters, that actually would have persuaded me to buy. And I think it's just brands need to think about actually what are they going to be selling in Black Friday? Because if you're a brand selling gym equipment and you are selling a treadmill, you're not going to sell a load of new treadmills to people that have already bought treadmills from you. But actually it could be a acquisition hook into the brand to actually then get them to buy the other pieces of equipment, etc. afterwards. So ideally, you would have different offers to suit both audiences. And you would think carefully about how you do them. I think the key thing with it as well, it's not just retention or acquisition, it's also within the customer segmentation, depending on what you're doing offers on, actually looking at, have people bought that before? Is there going to be a need to buy that? Because for in the case of Tony's, for example, for some people there might have been a case for the box, some people there might have been a case for the characters or whatever, and you can usually use that data to drive that insight.
Yeah, it's a great example, that one, because if you've got one of those boxes or one of the competitor options, even if you've got multiple children yourself, you don't need multiple boxes. You don't have one for child A and one for child B. So to be remarketing the boxes, and they're quite a juicy prize to give to someone else's child, even if they're a relation. So
Exactly.
it's not, and it would be so easy to do a single product segmentation. These people have bought
Yeah,
the box. Maybe with at the bottom of the email, forward to your friend if they haven't yet experienced the joy of Tony's. But the main bit being about exclusive characters released for Black Friday, or our witches multi-buy, or she says making things up. But it seems such an easy way to benefit when you're in one of those businesses where one of your products is highly unlikely to be bought more than once by the same person. Um, Hannah, your take on retention versus acquisition at Black Friday?
Oh yeah, I love retention. I mean, with a loyalty program, we're all around. We're all about retention, to be honest. Obviously, acquisition is very important, but kind of my take on it is more about those customers that are purchased during the peak season, letting them know about the loyalty program, the points that they've got, because in many situations, if a brand has their structure set up correctly, and I would hope that they do, after they've completed all the pre-purchase activities and the brand has collected the data on them, such as like their birthday information, they followed the brand on socials, they've made their first purchase, they should have enough points to then come and redeem a reward, because we know those shoppers who purchase during peak are discount driven. And I've mentioned this briefly, is that they've shopped for the first time, maybe to try out a new product, or maybe a new brand that the company sell, and then they're hooked into it. So you can follow up, like Anna was saying, around segmentation. Did you like that? I mean, you're probably going to run low on this moisturizer that you've ordered. Did you know you've got loyalty points to use? And that's what you can use to hook them in and say, look, you can get either this free product that maybe the loyalty program has, and you can try out a sample of something else, or you can use those points towards your next purchase. And that just helps cements the reason to come back and purchase again as well. So that's more of like an incentive rather than the storytelling piece. But that's kind of essentially, if they've got their loyalty program structure set up correctly, then that should really help aid repeat purchase.
Very cool. And then obviously the flip side then, on the retention side of Black Friday and peak in general, is when you're doing your customer acquisition, often you end up recruiting customers that never buy again, especially at this time of year. Tends to be worse. Nods all round for that one, because it tends to be worse than any other time of year. So, any tips for not spending a lot of money marketing over the next 12 months to the wrong people as we go through Black Friday? With our essentially our new Black Friday customers, how should we get the most out of them in the future?
So for me, it comes to data again. So look back at what's happened typically with customers you've acquired during this promotional period. So do they have a much lower repeat rate? Have they got a lower lifetime value because they spent a lot less in the first place? Did they make money when you recruited them? Sometimes they can actually go on to be great customers, but quite often you will find that actually they're a different type of customer and they go on to potentially continue to be a loss, and actually probably weren't worth the effort recruiting them in the first place in many cases. I think going back to my point about the customer journey and looking at actually what you do within your comms once people get to certain stages, looking at the post-purchase. So looking at the post-purchase of new recruits during this promotional period. One of the things you will probably find are people spend less time on the site before they make the decision on Black Friday and around that period. So quite often they are less likely to know about what else you sell and what else you're about than actually the hook that's got them in. So they might need more nurturing. So they may have the potential to be a better customer or as good a customer as other months, but you're forgetting that actually they're different. So it might be that in the parcel, making sure that there's something to introduce them into the brand. In the kind of post-purchase welcome for new, tell them about the different products, tell them about the different categories, especially if your Black Friday promo has not been site-wide, it's been exclusive products. Because if it's been exclusive products, they've probably stayed within that promotional set and not even looked wider. And let's face it, quite often when people have got that promotional set, it's quite a lot of the bad products that they want to get rid of, rather than the kind of the best sellers and the hero products. So it is about that education, like Hannah said as well about the loyalty, as well, and actually how do you introduce the loyalty program and actually make them aware that that exists, because they probably just haven't spent enough time making that decision in the first place. So don't ignore them, but look at them a bit differently, and actually then probably make the decision a few months in. If they look as if they are not doing anything and they are weaker customers, then look at actually what do you do going forward, because there's an argument to not keep them in the same mix with everyone else. But it might be, for example, when you do your summer sale next year, you try and re-engage some of those back in and get some of them buying again, because you know that they like discounts.
But also, of course, excluding them on your social ad platforms as well, so you're not hammering them with ads, because it's really easy to lose a lot of money without realizing
Exactly.
that way, especially
Exactly.
if they're then being fed into the algorithm as good targets. The whole
Yeah.
thing just kind of
Also,
spirals.
the same applies to prospects during that time, because if you're doing a massive promotion and you're spending a shed load of cash getting people to the website, and you've all of a sudden got that spike in traffic, but none of them are converting, but then the algorithm still, because it looks like they spent time on the site and they are prospects to buy, you might find that in December you're hammering those people that aren't going to buy from you anyway. You've not got the offer anymore, and you're still spending loads of money on trying to get them back. And actually, you might find that they're a dead cause earlier on. So give up while you're still in profit.
Love it. Massive checklist there from Anna. Thank you. Hannah, from on the loyalty perspective, and we don't have very long, so you're going to have to give me a quick, a fairly short answer on this one.
Mhm.
is it simply that loyalty gives you another way to try and encourage them to make that second purchase? Is it that straightforward?
It
Straightforward, she said.
it sounds straightforward, but I think Anna really hit the nail on the head there with the guest post-purchase messaging, you know, really educating the customer. You have to kind of really simplify things, you know, really break it down. You can add some pieces in there about reviews, customer experiences with using their products, using the platform. But in addition to that, actually, Anna's saying, you know, it might just be worth not cutting your losses, but, you know, just stripping back a little bit. One element that you can do with loyalty is you can use that points expiring piece. So for those customers that have shopped once and not come back, when it comes back around to peak again, they're going to get that notification. Look, you're going to lose out on your points that you've earned, and that's another way to re-engage them. And that's going to be more quantitative for them. They're going to be like, oh, that's going to be like a £15 voucher. I may as well use that. Why not?
Why not, indeed? Well, ladies, you have been brilliant. I have one last question to ask you, which I'll come to Anna first, then I'll come to Hannah, which is, of all the stuff we've talked about and maybe failed to talk about, is there one thought, one takeaway you would take away from this if you were one of the audience? What's your last piece of advice, Anna?
I'm going to go back to one of my first points and make sure you fully understand the data, especially if you want it to be a profitable season.
So essential.
Short and sweet.
So essential. Nothing else needs to be said. Hannah.
My key takeaway would be it's not just about the sales period, it's about retaining the customers after that as well. You're going to get a lot of new ones, but it's important to really keep in touch with them, keep nudging them and reminding them about you. Obviously, it gets to the point where it'll get annoying, so you have to tread lightly. But yeah, it's I think a lot of focus in what I found in talking to brands on the run up. Some people have it figured out yet, some don't. Um, they're really focusing on, you know, that peak period, but none have thought afterwards really. When I'm talking to brands about what they can leverage during December, and I'm asking, you know, what have you got planned? Not too much. So that's what I would also recommend brands also start thinking about, like drilling down on the, you know, buyer fatigue there. What can you do to help counteract that? So yeah, that's my final piece of advice.
Two huge pieces of advice to wrap things up here. Huge thanks to Hannah and Anna for being awesome guests. I am just going to let the audience know a couple of things. So I'll let them go and relax in the green room whilst we finish up here. So thank you all for tuning in. Thank you, Paul A, to your questions. Really appreciated that. You will all get an email either tomorrow or later today, giving you access to the replay, which you are very welcome to watch again or to share with your teams. That will also have a link to enable you to sign up, if you haven't already, to our upcoming sessions. So on the 1st of October, we'll be completing our trio of peak sessions, talking about AI and automation. Got a brilliant lineup of guests for that one. So huge amount of awesome insights going to come out of that, so highly worth getting yourself registered for that. And I will see you there. Thanks so much for tuning into this session though. Bye everybody.